What's up, guys? I'm Mohit K. Kashyap from Shri Venkateswara College of Engineering, currently pursuing my BTech in Electronics and Communication. So, today I'm gonna teach you guys about the topic effect of model integration of traffic conditions in India. So, moving on to the next slide. So let me give you guys a brief introduction about this topic. So traffic engineering is the phase of transportation engineering that deals with the planning, geometric design and traffic operations of roads, streets and highways, their networks, terminals and relationships with other modes of transportation. It explains the collection and analysis of different types of traffic data obtained as part of various studies. It also describes the design of different types of intersections and illustrates the use of road markings and lightings. Transportation plays a very vital role in economic growth of the country, production stage and distribution stage. India being the second most populous country, need of better transport infrastructure for fast and comfortable conveyance. The resultant process evolved out of the present condition integrated multimodal transportation system, which in short is called as IMMTS. So moving on to our next slide. So what is a multimodal transport? What do you guys mean by multimodal transport? So multimodal transport, also known as combined transport, is a transportation of goods under a single contract, but performed with at least two different types of transport. The carrier is liable for the entire carriage, even though it is performed by several different methods of transport by rail, sea, and road, for example. Multimodal transport is the articulation between different modes of transport in order to more rapidly and effectively transfer operations of materials and goods. Multimodal transport is that in which it is necessary to use more than one type of vehicle to transport the goods from his place of origin to their final destination, but mediating a single contact of carriage. Moving on to our next slide. So within this overall framework, we distinguish intermodal transport using different types of transport but using a single measure of load, and combined transport. The responsibility is assumed by different operators. Multimodal transport is affected by a multimodal transport operator who holds a multimodal transportation contract and assumes responsibility for compliance as carrier. So moving on to the next slide. So what do you mean by modal integration? Modal integration or integrated transportation system can be defined as the integration of some or all the different public transport models into the public transport system in such a way that these modes support and complement each other and they operate as a coordinated public transport public system while providing an effective, efficient and affordable services to the users. The following should be achieved to implement modal integration: an integrated network, integrated schedules, proper transfer facilities, a common ticketing and fare system. So these are the achieved, these are the implementations that are done on model integration. So moving on to our next slide. So what is integrated planning of infrastructure? Towns and country planning is a science that deals the study of urban country system, covering the interacting activities using adapted spaces linked by communication through channels. Transport planning is an important part of overall town and country planning since it deals with the transport network, which is an important channel of communications. Through motor, though motor vehicles has revolutionized our life and brought comfort, pleasure, convenience, they have created problems of congestion, lack of safety, and degeneration of environment like pollution, etc., etc., etc. To understand the nature of these problems and formulate proposals for the safe and efficient movement of goods and people from one place to another. Urban infrastructure is invariably linked with productivity of urban economy and macroeconomic development. So moving on to our next slide. So integrated urban infrastructure and service deploy development planning is a tool requirement to complement the present sectorial infrastructure planning practices, mainly in reducing the apparent fragmentation of infrastructure and service provision. According to the National Urban Development Policy Council of Ministers 2005, urban infrastructure delivery should be integrated and developed as one of the components of city development plans. In addition, the policy indicates that the participation and integration of activities of different sectors like municipal authorities, government development agencies, and the private sector is vital for plan implementation. In general, the delivery and development of urban infrastructure should aim at bringing balance urban development through prioritization and phase by phase development by taking into consideration urban hierarchy and the feasibility of urban infrastructure development. So moving on to our last and final slide. So in this slide, we are going to discuss about the requirements of modal integration. So higher priority to public transport with sufficient facilities and services. Here they provide the first priority to the public transport like for example BMTC, KSRTC, etc. Main focus on the movement of people and not on the modes and integration of transport and land use. Cooperation among and support of different government levels and various modes. The cooperation between the central government and state government we are talking about here. Availability of funds through public private partnership PPP and clarity on the policy of government. Formalization and regulation of public transport. Proper public transport planning and vision. So that's all for today, guys. I hope you understood really well. Thank you, guys. Goodbye.